Thank you all for being here. I'm Susie Bloom Hudgens from your class. I hope some of you remember me. I remember most of you. Dementia has not set in yet. And you, we conceived of this in the fall when we met for reunion planning, and we really felt like we wanted to focus on the writers in our class who have made writing their living. And that's not necessarily, it's a path of passion, I would say. And writing comes in many forms, as we'll discuss. And I'm hopeful that everyone, if they want to ask a question, they can put it in the question and answer bit. And we hope to have time at the end to discuss, like if people want to stay on and hang out, that's great. So that's where we are. So I am going in alphabetical order, and hopefully I did this correctly. So if I didn't, I'm sure someone will correct me. But I'm going to start with Kelly. Kelly Stanton Forden was an international studies major at Kenyon, though she should have majored in English. What was she thinking? Latest short story collection, I Have the Answer, was chosen as a Midwest Book Award finalist and an Eric Hoffer finalist. Her 2016 Michigan Notable Book, Garden for the Blind, was a Michigan Notable Book and Indie Fab finalist, a Midwest Book Award finalist, and an Eric Hoffer finalist, and an IPP Awards bronze medalist. I hope I said all that correctly. Her first full-length poetry collection, Goodbye Toothless House, was adapted. See, oh no, that's not the one I have. Sorry. Goodbye Toothless House was adapted into a play by Robin Martin and published in the Kenyon Review Online. She is also the author of 3 poetry chapter books and has received a Best of Net award and a Pushcart Prize nominations in 3 different genres. She speaks in Springfield Arts in Detroit and online, where she runs a fiction podcast called Let's Deconstruct a Story. Excuse me, I need to clear my throat. Which, if you haven't listened to, please do. It's fantastic. One of my favorites is when Kelly interviews George Saunders. Nick Hutchinson is a freelance writer and an amateur musician who lives in Denver, Colorado. He was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and grew up in the states of Arizona and Florida before attending boarding school at St. Paul's in Concord, New Hampshire. A student of the written word, he majored in English while at Kenyon, while he enjoyed classes with professors including Judy Smith, Tim Shutt, Adele Davison, and P.F. Kluge. Sorry. Nick also holds a master's in journalism from the University of Colorado. As a journalist, his writing has appeared online for websites including jambase.com, honesttrue.com, and Jambands, and in newspapers and magazines including the Tampa Tribune, the Boulder, Colorado Business Report, the Boulder Daily Camera, Summit Daily News, the Boulder Weekly, the Denver Westward, and the University of Colorado's Alumni Magazine and Relics Magazine. He wrote and published a children's book, Barry's Wild Ride, in May of 2013. And he is also the author and editor of the books Channeling Jerry. I just have to show this because my late brother would have loved this. And How the Music Plays His Fans, and High on a Mountain, an oral history of jamgrass. I said that right, in Colorado. As a child, Nick spent hours reading books such as Treasure Island and The Hobbit, and occupied his free time skateboarding, surfing, and dreaming of travel and adventure. As a teen, he began a lifelong fascination with the Grateful Dead, which led him to play the guitar and become a fan of all kinds of music, including classic, old time, and bluegrass. While at Kenyon, he occasionally contributed to the Collegian and the Haiku. His time at Kenyon allowed him to immerse himself in literature and to begin honing his skills as a writer. And I think that sums up a lot of what people say in honing their skills. Following Kenyon graduation, Nick worked in the insurance industry in Cleveland and then spent a short time in the investment world in San Francisco, where he passed his days pondering mutual funds and looking out from the Transamerica pyramid. Nick eventually returned to his core passion for words and storytelling. He moved to Colorado on a permanent basis in the fall of 1996 to begin a master's program in journalism at the University of Colorado. He has lived on the Front Range of Colorado ever since. He met his wife, Keller, an attorney for the University of Colorado Foundation, while working as an editor for the University of Colorado's alumni magazine. He and his family enjoy hiking, skiing, traveling, and spending time at the beach and enjoying life to the fullest. Courtney Keeley, master storyteller, on-air television anchor, and correspondent and communications and media strategist. Trained in combating disinformation and well-versed in emerging AI, she's a passionate mentor, accomplished journalist, and specialist with in-depth knowledge of the Middle East. Covered globally impactful events ranging from major conflicts to cultural revolutions. Experienced correspondent with time spent covering some of the most turbulent years in U.S. history, including racial justice protests, impeachment hearings, and domestic policies. And I'm just going to say, because she didn't include it, she was in the Capitol on January 6th. I've skilled in networking and identifying news as it is occurring. She has delivered breaking and live news worldwide. She is now based in Washington, D.C. and New York City after bases in Beirut, Jerusalem, Baghdad, and Istanbul. When she and I spoke the other day, she talked about how photojournalism is a form of writing. And she wrote all of her pieces for her newscasts. And she is currently coaching people in public speaking for media. She is working on her memoir, which I just listened to a podcast of someone whose name, she's from Tunisia, and neither Courtney or I knew how to pronounce her name. So I'm just going to say, but it was this lovely hour and a half or hour and 45-minute broadcast that is going to be on the basis of her memoir. And our friend Kelly, who's in here too, is helping her. And Courtney said, writing is the backbone. Jake Kerr majored in English because he hoped to be a writer. He also majored in psychology because he feared he'd need an actual job. In an odd twist of fate, he succeeded at both. After taking years to settle into the feared actual job, Jake embraced his dream of writing in his 30s and became a 40-year-old overnight sensation when his very first published story got nominated for most of the major science fiction awards, including the Nebula Award by Science Fiction Writers of America and the Sturgeon Award from the James Gunn Center for the Study of Science Fiction at the University of Kansas. He has subsequently written fantasy and science fiction novels and sold a story of his to Blumhouse Pictures. Recently, he developed a TV series with a former television executive that put Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead on air at AMC. So that's pretty cool. Cameron Kelly Rosenblum grew up in Southern Connecticut and studied literature at Kenyon College in Ohio. Yay, Kenyon. She is the author of 2 young adult books published by Quilltree Books, an imprint of HarperCollins. The Stepping Off Place was a Kirkus Best Book of 2020 and a Best Book about Mental Health, also by Kirkus. The Sharp Edge of Silence was published last April and is a finalist for this year's Edgar Allan Poe Award in the young adult category. Cameron lives in Maine with her family, including a massive Great Dane named Towser. Sarah Bamford Seidelman, MD, is a 4th-generation physician, accomplished writer, and shamanic healer, artist, and coach. Her 6 books have all been instant Amazon bestsellers. Her What the Walrus Knows app for iOS has users in 65 countries. For 20 years, Sarah was a board-certified pathologist, what she calls a disease hunter. After decades of seeking out illness, she grew curious about what creates health. Through her own investigation and with the help of her spiritual ally, Alice, an elephant in spirit form, she discovered the creative self-expression is fundamental to our vitality and health. Sarah specializes in helping others foster a connection to spirit by spending time in nature and observing the birds and animals. Sarah has been an instructor and a curriculum creator for Martha Beck's Wayfinder Life Coach. Everything Sarah creates is good for what ails us, writes Martha Beck in the New York Times. She's the New York Times bestselling author of The Way of Integrity. Training an official contributor for Martha Shriver's Architects of Change, Sarah is currently making art and preparing to publish her 7th book, a richly illustrated and entertaining volume about boundaries for helpers and healers. She co-leads a creative community called Shine for writers and artists who are committed to showing up for their work. Anna Switzer. You might remember me as Anne, but I have been going by Anna for 30 years now. Anna was the only female physics major in our graduating class, and becoming an author was never really on her radar screen. After Kenyon, she became a physics teacher, and then life just led her into one crazy adventure after another. She has a master's in oceanography and a PhD in science education. Amongst all the academic work, she also instructed wilderness courses for Outward Bound, working in the mountains of Western North Carolina and on various waterways with alligators, I'd like to tell you, when you read her book. She has biked across the U.S. with students, spent 6 weeks on a tall ship at sea, paddled a portion of the Yukon River, started a project-based learning school from scratch in England, and was the program manager for outdoor experiential education at National Geographic Society. Licensed to Learn, Elevating Discomfort in the Service of Lifelong Learning is Anna's first book, published in 2021, with an audio book version recorded in 2023. She is currently 25,000 words into her 2nd book and is grateful for the broad foundation she received at Kenyon in order to feel confident in pursuing writing at this stage of life. To support her learning curve regarding writing, she is a freelance educational consultant working with schools in California and Alaska and other non-school related projects. She resides in Oregon. Woohoo! I'm glad I didn't have to write that because it wouldn't say very much, people. It wouldn't say very much. So congratulations to all of you. That's very, very impressive. And I had sent out to everyone, because I'm a dork and I do teach writing and work with young people, that I was going to ask a lot of questions from this, which is what I call my Bible when I'm teaching kids to write their college essays. Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. So I wanted to ask a little bit about your writing habits. So I can let you start if anybody wants to jump in, but I can also preface it. So should I preface it or anybody want to start? I'll preface it. So Anne Lamott says, all I know is that the process is pretty much the same for everyone I know. The good news is that some days it feels like you just have to keep getting out of your own way so that whatever it is that wants to be written, you can use to write it. And I was kind of curious how you all feel about that, because when she says get out of your own way, do you feel like that ever occurs to you or happens to you? It may occur to you. I'm just curious if it happens to anyone. And you all can choose to answer. I'm not picking on anyone.
I'll jump in. This is Sarah Seidelman, or Bamford Seidelman, I should say. I was thinking my first book, I got some help from somebody about creating a structure for it, because my problem was I had so many ideas for a book. It was hard to contain them, but once I kind of figured out a structure, then it was so easy. And for that first book, I remember going to a coffee house and just putting on my headphones and listening to Phoenix like on repeat, and then just writing like a fiend. But it's been different for every book, like what works for me to get the work done.
There, Anna, you talk about in your book people getting out of the comfort zone, their comfort zone. And is there anything that about writing habits that you could speak to about the comfort zone?
Sure. Yeah. And just tagging on to your first question, for me, when I wrote my first book, it actually sort of dropped in almost as a whole thing in that kind of space that you're in when you're between wake and sleeping. And it was like 5 o'clock in the morning one morning, and it like literally just dropped into my awareness, and I had to flip on the light and get out paper and start drawing circles and arrows. And if you read the book, you'll see lots of circles and arrows. But it literally just dropped in. And I think like the reason I wanted to say that is because for me, like in that liminal space, I wasn't in my own way, but there's no way to predict when or how that might occur for anybody. And then, yeah, for this second book, it's happening a little bit more intentionally and carefully. And I've been working and reworking my outline for like 2 years. And I think relative to like the comfort zone idea, I think I had a hope that maybe the second book would drop in its entirety like the first one did. But it just is a totally different project and has required a different process and more time. So
Anybody else
Yeah,
want to mention that?
yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to like you get in your own way. And part of it is that, authors don't really know where they're going. In a lot of ways, it's terrifying. You sit down and you have an idea, and sometimes you're told where you want to go, and it's not really where you want to go. And then you're in your own way because you're going in a direction you don't want to go. One of the challenges of and I granted this is like first world writer problems, but one of the challenges of early success is that you need to follow that, and are you going to go, and you may not want to go in that direction. You want to go in another direction, but you kind of force yourself because, kind of what you said earlier, Susie, the making a living writing is different than making writing your life, and putting those two in conflict is a really prime way of getting blocked and getting in your own way. So I'm kind of rambling, but I hope I expressed some element of sad wisdom there. So
yeah, I would say that I'm kind of resonating with all the things that you all have already said. Anna, having something drop in, I think that liminal space that you were talking about in writing fiction, I've learned that is my best time of writing. So I get up really early in the morning. And I think there's something about being sort of semi-conscious that you really have access to a much more creative side of your brain. So for me, I clearly did not get the memo about writing a long bio. So I just put the one in for my book. But if I were to tie in the Kenyon influence is huge. The whole reason I went to Kenyon was to improve my writing because I wanted to be an author from a really, really young age. But of course, figured out you can't just like graduate college and start writing novels unless you're John Green, I guess. But it can be done apparently, but I couldn't do it. So I went into education. That's also a Kenyon story that I won't bore you with, but so for years, I was in my own way because I worked with elementary kids. And so I kept trying to write a book like, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Baisley, Frank Weiler, like the things I loved as a kid. And I kept trying and trying, and I networked like crazy. So I did get to a place where I was meeting agents from big houses, big agencies and publishers from big houses, but I wouldn't drop the ball of this one idea. I just wouldn't let it go. I kept thinking it was going to go, it was going to go, it was going to go. And then finally literally, I'm embarrassed to say, 10 years into the process. I was raising a family and stuff at the same time, so I forgive myself that. But finally, I was like, screw it. This thing isn't going to sell. So now I have a choice. I'm either going to give up writing and just do my other life, or I'm going to pursue it and just try something different. And so I tried writing. I actually lost one of my really dear friends from childhood to suicide at like simultaneously with this. And I was really so crushed by that I needed like a process to mourn. She lived really far away, so and none of my adult friends knew her. And so anyways, I started writing this book, and in the YA voice, it just like popped. Like all of a sudden, all these agents that I met were like, who, you're like praying they remember your name, are suddenly like giving you their cards. And it was like, all of a sudden I realized I'd been writing for the wrong age bracket for what I really am a writer for a really long time. So it felt great to finally find that voice. And I think it has a lot to do with Kenyon, because I kept like tons of journals during all those years at Kenyon, and I had P.F. Kluge, who I adored. And I think the more you write at a certain age, like I kind of think I baked it into my brain, how to that YA voice. It just never went away. So I'm really I'm really a big believer in you can stay in your own way the whole time. Like if I had just not made that shift, I never would have gotten published. So yeah, you can
Okay,
definitely be in your own way.
thank you, Cameron. I'm gonna switch a little bit. Unless anyone else would like to add to their habits or anything. Courtney, please do.
I write nonfiction.
Yeah, yeah, that's where I was headed.
Okay, so I'll segue.
No, go ahead.
So I was telling Susie that when I was admitted to Kenyon, in that personal paragraph that was so lovely they sent all of us, it said, "We welcome you with pen and camera in hand." And I was processing things I had seen and the way I'd lived through my camera. And then I thought photojournalism was writing and photography. When I was first starting out, I often wrote the story behind the pictures or in tandem. Sold a piece on a doctor in Russia, for instance, early on to the Associated Press. And so I was always kind of writing and photographing. And then even when I moved into broadcast, I was writing what I was saying or saying it. And there were tremendously horrible events that I bore witness to. So to try to be able to write now, I have to be in my comfort zone. In fact, I actually have to be under a quilt with my puppies, with the hot chocolate or a coffee, preferably with my boyfriend making a roast chicken. Like it has to happen in a very specific way of comfort and kindness. And then it's also taken years to process so much of the trauma that I want to write about personally. And I know trauma is a buzzword and triggering are buzzwords, and unfortunately they've become almost meaningless and overused. But if you want to be a writer and you want to write about hard things, you kind of have to go through the deep end. And so you're definitely going to need writer friends, writer support, all of that, because you lose perspective. Was that interesting that I did that? How the way I grew up, that's probably not interesting to anyone. Maybe that's just privilege. And all of these questions, things you would leave, as they say, on the cutting room floor, like not to leave on the cutting room floor, things that you would not even write down, things that you would think were too silly, not interesting enough. We self-censor way too much. And I also learned that some of the things I had seen overseas might be too horrible, or actually depressingly so, too uninteresting to people, that I had to really learn how to communicate on a whole different level than journalism.
Thank you, Courtney. Which sort of, I was going to lead with this because I know that Kelly started writing for Arlington Magazine or something. I may be making that up, but I'm pretty sure it was that.
The Springfield Connection when we lived together.
Yeah. I knew it was something
that
like
that well-known paper that you've all read.
I imagine
Springfield, Virginia.
Yeah. So I was curious, especially for you and Courtney and maybe Nick. Clearly, Anne Lamott writes about hating some, like making characters that you might not really like. But I imagine when you encounter people and you're interviewing them, you still have to present it in a particular way, but they might not be to your fancy, so to speak. And I was wondering if you had any stories or things about that you might want to share. And plus doing it on a deadline.
I write on deadline pretty much. So having a deadline is great. And I take my hat off to the fiction writers because that scares me. Because basically I know what I'm going to write about, generally speaking. I have a topic in front of me. I know who I'm interviewing. That's pretty easy. But the only part that can be hard is sometimes, you'll be on the spot and you have to sort of wing it. I did an interview with Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead backstage that I didn't know if it was going to happen. And I waited the whole show and I wasn't sure if it was going to, someone came out and tapped me and said, all right, you're on. The next thing I knew, there I was with a lifetime hero of mine sitting down. And I had to sort of wing it. I hadn't prepared that well, but, and he's not a big talker. He can go kind of quiet. He's okay with quiet. So I had to kind of coax him out and keep him going. So that's the kind of thing you might run into sometimes. It gets a little scary.
I mean, Courtney, you've seen some pretty scary people.
I'm sorry about
puppies.
Different kind of scary.
Do you have your dogs next to? Saddam Hussein. I saw Saddam Hussein. We were separated by glass, and it was the day of his death sentencing. And I've been up close to Gaddafi, and I've been in the same room with President Trump. Whether you think he's scary or not, we're not talking politics. I think Saddam Hussein was the most scary. He just really he embodied it in a way that not every dictator does. Not every head of state, I walked down the street with former Al-Qaeda guys that had just announced their allegiance. I've interviewed Hezbollah, Hamas, but Saddam Hussein takes the cake. He just had an arrogance, and I ended up writing about it in the first person, which was really important for the Times of London. I was on air at the time at Fox in Baghdad, and then ex-boyfriend, full disclosure, I said, well, too bad you're not in Baghdad because I am, and I'm going to see Saddam Hussein, like, twist of the knife. And he smartly said, well, why don't you give it to us instead? He was in Gaza. So I wrote, with the final snarl, he swaggered out because he really did. And I was like, whoa. I mean, the glass was here, but it was like,
I just have to say, like, I don't know how many of us on this call could reference meeting dictators in the plural. So I just have to say, I tip my hat of you are a badass. So bravo. I hope it's okay that I cursed. But anyway, I do it very well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm the queen of the F-bomb.
Yeah. And I'm holding it off on this. Go ahead, Nick.
Did Saddam have questions that were off bounds or, out of bounds? Or,
I didn't interview him. I was in the courtroom, and there was floor to ceiling glass, and it was the day he got the death sentence. Yeah. So you could see the judge, you could see him walk in from a side door, and he started with his shenanigans. If he had followed the trial, would make all these, hold up a Quran or do all this stuff, and they just swiftly went off. They just swiftly given everyone the death sentence, and they gave him the death sentence, and he turned around on his heel and sort of saw him face to face. He was walking towards me, and then he leaned over the prosecutor's desk and kind of snarled at them, and and then walked out the door. And sometimes, especially with him, many were more like mob dons too. So when he leaned over and hissed at the prosecutors, it was like your family. You know what I mean? He does that. Just to get him out of the way was still terrifying enough for people.
Have you done some one-on-ones with other dictators that are?
I've done a lot of Hezbollah.
Hezbollah, and yeah,
I've sat down with Hamas a lot of times. That's more terrorist groups. Top dictator though, I think someone takes the cake.
Scary people though, not Bob Weir.
Maybe not. Maybe not. The stakes weren't so high because I didn't love them.
There was an interesting question though, Susie, because it's like you interview somebody and how are you going to present them, because you're in control of the words, if not on camera, Courtney, but if you're like, I spent 10 years as a music journalist, and Lou Reed was an asshole, Henry Rollins was an asshole, and I got called into the Interscope offices and was threatened to be stabbed if I wrote another bad thing about Limp Bizkit. So it's just kind of like, you have to be, there's the, unfortunately in journalism today, and I'm speaking only for myself, so I hate to generalize, but you got to pay the bills, right? So you can't just say Lou Reed was an asshole when you're covering his, record release party, or you're not gonna have a job the next day, right? So it's a dance of trying to get the real person out behind the words that won't offend the SVP.
Well, with politics too. I mean, it was a delicate dance during COVID, and I feel like a whole book should be like just what the fuck of my inner monologue. What's going on, what I'm really thinking, what I'm actually saying.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be like, what an art, Courtney, to be able to like try to craft the truth out of the propaganda that you're kind of operating within, or at least the confines of a box that you're operating in. You got to craft the truth out of that, and that's crazy. I have all the respect in the world for you.
Thank you. I actually think it's more like first gatekeeper of history. It's not an art form. It's just there's restraint that's involved. But I'm actually more interested in like the long form. Like, Nick, I would love to hear about how you met one of your heroes.
Oh,
those kind of stories, those kind of like how Lou Reed was the jerk we all thought he would be.
Jake's, sorry, where were you writing, doing the music writing? Because that's interesting.
I worked for I was the alternative rock editor at the height of grunge for a publication called Radio and Records in West LA, and so I was there I had my own publication for 5 years, and I worked there for 5 years. So I would write about radio and the music industry and the interplay between the two. So it was very much merchant, very much commerce driven, as much as I would try to push back on that.
Kyla wants to know if you've met Dave Grohl, and so would my daughter probably.
There's
no way. Oh,
there's me with Dave right there.
Oh my God.
The late Taylor Hawkins.
Ask for a copy of that. I'm just telling you.
I got all kind of shit like that. Here's my what is it?
Well, I'm gonna, because we
the
have
the detritus of my life is what it is. So
the detritus of life. Well, I was going to ask some other questions, but you all are doing such a beautiful job sharing with each other. So I would kind of like to hear a little bit about these. So these are the three last things that I want to cover. So you can answer whichever one you want. Okay. Like writer's choice, so to speak. I was kind of curious about like your favorite moment as a writer. I think we might know Nick's with his interview, but maybe not. Your most challenging moment as a writer, and then dorky but true. What are you reading right now, and what would you like to recommend? So, the floor is yours. Answer however you'd like to choose.
Oh, I have one journalism question for the journalists, because it feels like journalism is completely different than fiction writing or poetry. And I was very briefly a journalist. I used to like make up all my articles. And luckily it was in a very tiny paper that no one read. In fact, Fred featured in one of my articles because I couldn't get up the nerve to interview anyone. And so I was like, and Fred Forden says, you know, which, so, but I'm just saying, like, you have to get out there and you have to be like a adrenaline junkie kind of. And what really worried me when I briefly did it was, how do you deal with not being able to get the interview? You know, like when you're on deadline and you're trying to get someone important like Dave Grohl and you can't find them, or someone gets to them before you. How do you deal with all of that pressure?
I've been writing for, usually when I do my interviews, they're for the Westward in Denver. So generally speaking, the people I want to interview want to be in the Westward because it's good publicity for them. I had one person who wouldn't interview, that was John Mayer. And just personally, I was let down because I kind of wanted to interview him. He's actually a pretty good interview. He's very articulate and kind of funny. And, but fortunately, I haven't been on deadline and not been able to get an interview, because that would really, I mean, and then you don't have a piece at that point. So that, I don't know how anyone else, how Jake wants to answer that, or someone else, or Courtney. But, you know, for me, usually I'm lined up. I try to line it up.
I'm like not even the same universe as Courtney. So, but for me, I was writing stories about artists and about events and about how music was being used to, you know, build fans and things like that. So keep that in mind. But from my experience, and I had a deadline, I had to write 2,000 words a week for, you know, 10 years. I think it's not much different at all, or it wasn't for me. So let me qualify that, because you're crafting a story, Kelly. It's like you've got something you're going to write about, and if you want to engage the reader, you're going to take them on a narrative journey, and it's going to have an end. They're going to start with, hey, this is what's happening, and it's going to have hopefully a satisfactory ending. Now that's writing columns on a weekly basis. I don't think there's many. You know, there's probably and I'm going to hand it to you, Courtney, but I think there's probably a lot of instances where there is no ending. It's like, what the fuck is going on? I don't know. We'll find out next week, but I would love to hear how you manage that. But for me, it was crafting a narrative within 2,000 words.
Everything's a narrative. I agree. Crafting a narrative is what everyone's trying to do in terms of the pressure of delivering, under promise, over deliver, rules to live by. That helps. The big gulp moment is when you say, I need to be in Cairo on Thursday night because everything's going to go down Friday, and you don't know if the Arab Spring is going to start or not, basically. That, you know, the Egyptian version of it, which was the storming of Tahrir, but to have the chutzpah to call it, and that develops with time, and also community and friends, and you in the Middle East and overseas, you tend to have a good group of people. We all work for different places, but with the interest of keeping each other alive and caring about each other, the stakes were that we all kind of shared information that was important, not the most important stuff, but the stuff that was going to get us, you should be there with me, I'm going to be there Thursday, kind of thing.
Yeah. My struggle was, am I going to have a dark roast or a light roast in the morning? That was my struggle. So it doesn't quite compare to going off to Baghdad or
in Bethlehem. They have stars and bucks.
Stars and bucks.
So just FYI.
Well, does anyone have a book that they're reading or their favorite moment as a writer that they might like to share?
I'll share. Probably one of my favorite moments as a writer was I was sharing an early draft of a book with a friend, and she left me a voicemail where she was crying. Like, she got into this story so much that it just really moved her and touched her. And I think sometimes as writers, it's like, I always thought, oh, it'll be so rewarding when, it sells to a lot of people, or I get good reviews or whatnot. But it's like, really, in the end of the day, it's like when it's moved somebody that's really close to me, that's been probably the most meaningful for me. My worst moment was getting invited to go to a book club where it was my book, And I got there and it was like they roasted me. Like it was my memoir and it was like a firing squad. Apparently they had all gotten together and decided they hated the book. I mean, it was just unreal. It was wild. And I stayed there for 2 hours until I had enough consciousness to go like, you got to get out of here, girl. And I finally did leave, but it was quite astonishing.
People can be cruel.
They
That's for
asked
sure.
you.
What's that?
I said it's interesting that they asked you. I mean, that's kind of
That's what I thought. Like it really made me curious. Like, who does this?
I'm still
Kelly,
like,
did
who
you
does
wanna
that?
say
That's
something?
so awful.
No, I was saying goodbye to Abby because she said she had to hop off. But I'm trying to think of, well, so Courtney kind of shared in this too, because a good friend of mine, Bonnie Jo Campbell, I mean, it's sort of like I'm living vicariously through her, but she's 61, she's a Michigan author. And when I was writing my first book, she published a book with Wayne State University Press, which is in Detroit, just like a small university press. And then she got nominated for the National Book Award. So I was like, oh, that's kind of legit, you know? So that then I sent my book there and got published there. So I've been kind of following her ever since. And she just finished a novel, and then Jenna Bush Hager chose it for the Today Show, which was really cool. It's 61, so it gives us hope. But she lives on a donkey farm in Kalamazoo, and they were like, come, you know, and be ready to be on the Today Show, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, what does that even mean? She's like wears t-shirts and, you know, jeans and whatever. So I texted Courtney, and she's like, I'll help her. And so she went and helped her out, which was so great. And she looked amazing and she did a good job. And so thank you to Courtney, but
well,
so that was very inspiring.
It was all the
so go ahead, Courtney.
Oh no, I was going to say it was all the sharing. Actually, Judy Smith's American Lit class came up because I was talking about how her novel, I was like, come on, I know you're not on a donkey farm, but these are big themes, the matriarch, the land, your attachment to the land, the family's attachment to the land. And then I sort of riffing in, you know, as time is but a stream I go a fishing in, like Judy always said. But it was really cool and that's what I do now. A lot of the time I help other people tell their stories, which I love doing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if I know Kelly does that, and I know you do that, and I think Anna does that by virtue of, you know, some of the educational things you do. Do any other of you belong to writing groups or anything that you're working collaboratively to help people?
Yeah, I've helped a lot of kids with their college essays, which sounds really icky, like, because I just hate the whole college process, acceptance process. But when you're writing with, if you're helping a struggling writer find their story, there's something really powerful about that. So that's one of the things I've really enjoyed doing. And then it's always cool to be in writers groups when you have, like, you know, your writer friends are going to be so different from or at least in my case, they're really different from all my other friends, because I probably would never have encountered them in any other way. But we meet at these like writing conferences, and then we just like stick together like glue, and it's been cool to have that.
I taught at the Cascade Writers Workshop in Bremerton near Seattle last year, and I found it really difficult. And one of the reasons I think I found it difficult is it really resonated with my own challenge. Like I didn't write when I graduated from Kenyon. I didn't write for like 12 years. And part of the thing was Kenyon taught me like so well. I knew all of the tools. I knew what all the tools did. You know, I could go down the list from slant rhyme. I knew that I could use passive voice effectively because I knew how to use it, as opposed to you never use passive voice, you know. And yet when I sat down and I started to write, it was like horrible. It was like, and it's taken me many, many, many years to realize that, you know, to learn to write requires writing. It's like, I always use the metaphor of a painter. You know, a painter will know all of the details of painting, but when you put the brush in their hand, every hand is different. They don't know how much force they can apply. They don't know how they're going to hold it. Everybody's going to be different. And it's not until you actually start painting that you're going to learn how to do it. And it's the same with writing. And when I'm in workshops, I find it very difficult because I can point to people and say, you need to find your story. You're drifting onto something else. And it's not, I don't think I'm very helpful in that. I think I'm not very good at those things, because what I really want to tell people is, if you know all of the rules and all of the tools and all of what you need to do, you're like 10% of the way there. Like everything else is just writing and revision and learning and you know, scraping your knees as you fall, and having someone like the people on this group and our fellow writers to lift you up and tell you it's okay. We scraped our knees the same way, and different path. I had cobblestone, you have bricks, but we definitely scraped our knees. And I don't know if that's something that you can like teach, or it's something that people want to hear. They want like, tell me I shouldn't use passive voice. And I'm like, well, what's your authorial intent? I don't know. Like, all right. I'm babbling. I apologize. So
No. I don't like doing this. This is not my great skill, cutting people off, because I can talk forever.
I'm done.
You know. But we have I know this sounds really minor compared to what we're talking about, but we are hopeful that you all can participate on Saturday of reunion in the authors panel, and you can bring your books, or we're hoping that the bookstore will be able to have them in there. I know quite a few people are, and we heard people are going to be in there. So that's invitation to keep the dialogue going. I do want to touch on one thing Cameron said, because I also work with kids writing their college applications. And to me, it's the first time you write with purpose and voice. And I think that's something that we got. And so I'm just going to share this last thing before I ask Chris Eaton to talk to you a little bit about things that he's really good about talking about. And Anne Lamott says, we write to expose the unexposed. If there is one door in the castle you have been told not to go through, you must. Otherwise, you'll just be rearranging furniture in rooms you've already been in. Most human beings are dedicated to keeping that one door shut. But the writer's job is to see what's behind it, to see the bleak, unspeakable stuff, and turn the unspeakable into words. Not just into any words, but if we can, into rhythm and blues. So I really want to thank you all for sharing your journey. I think if you didn't know, in the chat, Kenyon has been posting links to everybody's websites and whatnot. I have to say, I mean, Joan O'Hanlon was really picking on me that I was an English major and I should be able to read all these books in a very short amount of time. It's been a lot of pressure because I do have a job and children, but I did it. That's what I can say. I did it, and I've loved every second of it. I can add a lot of books to my Goodreads shelf, and I just want to, like, some of you have individually, and some of you in your books talk about what a struggle it is in the beginning. If you ever listen, when you read Courtney's memoir, you'll hear about some of the fun jobs she had at Nacho Mama's, and Anna talks about riding her bike with her nephew, I think, in her back, just to save on gas so that she could get somewhere for, you know, I think when you have to work very humbly in the beginning. And I just want to, maybe other than Sarah, who was a physician. So I commend all of you, and I thank you all for being here from the bottom of my heart, as well as the reunion committee. We look forward to seeing everyone. Now, Chris, it's up to you.
There we go. got the technology done. Susie, thank you for hosting. Panelists, thank you. That was fantastic. I have always been cited in my corporate life as being a good writer. I'm good at corporate writing. I'm the good 100-word memo guy. What you guys do is so far beyond my competition and comprehension. So thank you very much for getting on and talking about it. Nick, you and I have to find each other. We live like 40 miles apart. So I live down in Littleton. So we'll make this work. Listen, I wanted to talk just a bit. Reunion is coming up, and for those who maybe weren't aware, the first tranche of registrations for Reunion was today. If you were part of the Abrams Society or one of the other societies that the school has, you probably got an email on that. The next tranche comes out in about a month, and we really look forward to seeing you there on campus for our 35th. The reunion group, we have 21 strong, and if you've ever done any reunion work, normally a committee is something like 5, 6, 7 people. We have 21 people working to make reunion a fun time for us all to get back together on the Hill for our 35th. When we got together, myself and Chris Toft, and this is a 100% true story, over a number of Manhattans, had this great idea that said, wait a minute, where can we help the college the most? And as you are all probably aware, maybe some more than others, there's been a huge change in how college funding works, who can get funding, how things work. And getting folks, especially first-time students in a family, to college is getting harder. There's been some rulings from the Supreme Court that makes it harder to do, but a number of other things have happened. So what we did is we worked with the college, and we've come up with the Class of '89 scholarship. And what this is it's a direct scholarship for any number of students, however much we can raise money for, to get them to Kenyon. And these are going to take the form of partial scholarships or maybe a full scholarship to get a deserving student or students to get to experience the Kenyon experience that we all did. There are a number of first to college folks in our group. There's a couple sitting on this screen right now. So while we might not be aware of who they are, know that this is something that impacts families, that changes lives. So if you're interested in helping that, the Class of '89 Operating Scholars Fund is open for donations. It's part of the donation process that we're doing. As of right now, we have a goal of 240,000. We've already raised 146,000. We get to our goal, that would be 3 students. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful progress. And anyone, if you wish to help, please reach out to Toft, myself, or directly to the college, and I'm more than happy to talk with you about that. Finally, in terms of participation, we have 19% of our class that is participating in a gift at some level or some kind. I know that's like, okay, what's that number mean? That is very high. This is a very engaged class. I mean, we have 57 people on a random Thursday night to talk about authors. How cool is that? So a lot of good things going into what's going to happen around reunion weekend. So I look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible. Susie, thank you again for hosting and doing this. The reunion team that I get to work with on a periodic basis, thanks for all the work behind the scenes to get this all done. And finally, for those of you who don't know, it is Mr. Toft's birthday today. He is sick at home on the couch, hence you are not seeing him in video, which is probably a good thing given the texts I received from him. But please do reach out to him and wish him a happy belated birthday tomorrow. Thank you all. Susie, let me return it back to you.
Okay, so I've seen some chatter. I'm not sure. I think it's time for our drink poll. I know that this is super important, but see, this was supposed to be the theme. Purple cocktails. They can be mocktails. They do not have to be alcohol. But Chandra and Andy have been working on a list of them, and I think there's a poll at school. I do not have a poll. So
Susie, sorry, I'm going to interrupt. I'm putting it in the chat, and I will list each option. And if the guests would just like each option as their vote, then I will capture those responses.
Thank you. Sorry. So they're in the chat. We plan to have purple cocktails available during our party, as well as non-alcoholic versions. The primary recipe will be liquor of choice, lime, simple syrup, butterfly pea flour for the purple. We're asking you to vote, just so you know, we want you to feel like you have a say. I've never really liked gin, but apparently this worked with the Empress. So there you go. My son, class of 22, made it for me. So there you go. If you all want to, if anyone wants to have conversation, I don't know how to manage that with this many people, but I certainly think that we have some time to, once you vote for the poll, you all can unmute and we can stay on here, because I'm afraid to say this, the school has given me the power to keep this on or end it. So, and I don't want to break you all out into classrooms or anything like that. We're not going to do that. And we want to let people go. Mary Smith looks very tired.
I say tequila. How do we vote?
Tequila, it's in the chat.
Oh, I do like
And I would say tequila as well.
You just have to like it. Put a reaction next to the.
Oh, okay.
Yes, just hover over the option and then you can add a reaction. So
I'm stunned at all the gin likers. Not a fan of gin, but that would be due to a mishap in high school.
Well, freshman year, I learned to hate beer. We're not going to go into it. Sophomore year, I learned to hate vodka. We're not to go into it. And just gin never got, we won't go into it. So it was gin for me.
Again, doesn't have to have alcohol.
We
It's
could
all
just-
to you.
Well,
I like
seltzer
tequila.
would be-
I don't know how to vote here. I don't see the thing I'm supposed to hover on, but
It's on the,
It's
that
under the word. So if you find the liquor word underneath, they'll either be hearts or thumbs up. You pick the thing under the word to add to it.
Can we talk about David's very fancy professional microphone?
I was like, is God here?
Thank
What is
you. Thank
happening?
you. Yes.
Like a
So-
gentle bird, and I thought
Wait
you were
that
gonna
out?
drop us a song.
Sorry about that. The joke was, like everybody, like during COVID, right? You're all going to be home. Everybody suddenly learns to love video. And I had a little audio love on the side. And so I actually bought reasonable stuff. And every time I'd get on a conference call with other companies, people would get on and be like, what's going on over there? What do you have at your house? How come you sound better than everybody else? I'm like, well, I just bought a few things, not a big deal. And then it's like,
sound good.
you sound like a radio announcer. And I said, well, I wish I could get that job.
Your voice is, if you could just say it's 8:32 and now we're going to go on to.
It's 8:32. And now on to the Courtney Kelly Show.
David, maybe you can say this. There's also going to be a pickleball tournament organized by Ed B. Miller and Abby Jacobson, and get in shape. If you've never played, don't stand in the kitchen to hit. And if you know what that means, good on you. And the other thing I wanted to say is you need to register on March 1st. Like, don't let this thing be one of those things that you're like, I'll register in a few weeks. Like, there won't be time. You want whatever decent housing exists at Kenyon, you're going to want it. So
right. Even though it's, in the dorm, it's better than going into Mount Vernon. So
yeah. And please invite everybody you know from the class who might not be here, because if we have enough people, we can have our party at Bexley, we hope.
Which some people may not know, Susie. So the Bexley Art Building was renovated, and it's now housing. And actually, our very close friends, from living here with my kids, their daughter's a sophomore at Kenyon, and she is living in them, Susie. And this thing's stunning. I can't even believe it. But so the building's really cool, and it'd be awesome for us to have our party.
No smelly carpets?
No smelly carpets.
Which dorms?
Oh, man.
Open. Which dorms do they provide, or can we use?
They provide all of them because they need to, but depending on when your reunion year is and how many people tend to come, plays a part in where you are housed.
let's just remember, Kenyon is only but so big.
Oh yeah.
And here's the other thing I'm going to say, honestly, if you've not been to a reunion or, you know, or haven't been in a while, you really don't spend any time in your room. It's there to like shower, get dressed, and sleep. And
Agree with
the
that.
rest of the time you're out and about doing different things. So if you cannot get caught up on the fact that you're going to be on a twin in whatever dorm.
Totally.
Well, and if you've never been, you really should go. That's the other thing. Like if you haven't been back to Kenyon, it's the same and different. That's all I can say. Like, it's wonderful. Several of us can say we've seen it through our kids' eyes, and all the things that everyone said about writing were great. And Heidi Steinert shared with us the other day, her dad is there teaching a class, and it just blew me away. And he teaches at MIT, and his CV would knock, I mean, like, holy cow. And he said that he thought the writing of the Kenyon students was better than the MIT students. And hoorah. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're science nerds.
Well,
that also means there's science nerds at Kenyon who write well. Let's think about that for a second.
And rebuttal, and you have to give rebuttal for the physics guy.
Yeah.
Well, I will share. So I didn't have a chance earlier, but this is a book that I was going to recommend to folks. It's called Sense Making. And it's actually about the value of a humanities-based education in this amazingly complex world that we're in. And it talks about how people in like big, important walks of life do what they do because they got a humanities-based education. So highly recommend this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who here went to the K80s reunion? Like, show of hands. That was like the best party. I mean, that was really, really fun. So good.
You guys had a band. Who's one? Was it Kelly?
The Heartbreakers, or the, what was it, Joan? What were they called?
The Part-Time Lovers.
The Part-Time Lovers. God, so good. It was so good.
Wow.
I had them play for my 50th birthday.
What?
That's awesome.
Lucky you.
It was a lot of fun.
I haven't been back since graduation day. December, day after graduation, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Really? That's bad.
Yeah.
I went back when I lived in Cleveland a couple of years after, and it was interesting to walk on campus after 2 years, but I haven't been back since then, since about 91.
Oh,
There's
wow.
so much that's changed. You're going to be blown away. I mean,
What has dramatically changed? I'm just curious. What stands out if you go on campus now and you haven't been there in decades?
Oh, I mean, there's so many things. There's a whole science quad, like, so behind Samuel Mather is just the buildings and facilities for science, I think. And I haven't seen this, the English, right? The English buildings also, where, huh?
The gym.
Oh my God. Yeah.
The library.
Were
the library and the housing. The lack of the Pirates Cove. I mean, I don't know why you all are talking about academic buildings, but the Pirates Cove isn't there anymore.
No longer. Okay.
Yeah, that is gone.
I'm saying.
The BI.
That's a serious problem.
BI is still
still there. BI is still there.
I had dreams over all these decades that Kenyon got overbuilt, and it was always like my really bad dream that they'd come in and like built big buildings. It was like, not Kenyon.
No, they did things nicely. There's no more gun dining hall. Everything's in Pierce, and so they kind of redone that. There are like apartments or townhouses.
I think they're little mini pickup places for food now.
Yeah. But there's also on the north end, Far Hall is gone, yes. And they have these amazing townhouses up kind of behind where Mather was. If you were going over toward the Bexley and new apartments, these things look amazing. So
yeah, my son lived in one of them, and it was the nicest apartment he's had yet, and he's been out for 3 years now. So
yeah, same for my daughter. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the new apartments still stand.
They're still there. Yeah, my my daughter's friends lived in a I think B4, one of the downstairs ones, and like the mold that everybody was talking about, real. Yeah, that was there. So someone had the idea of having a fundraiser where we could all take a sledgehammer to the new apartments when they are really able to go. I would pay big money to take a few swings at D4. I would do that.
I think we could push it over with our hands. I don't know that we need a
Yeah, the hammer just would be for effect, but yes, you could give it a good push and that would work too.
Yeah. You could do a good virtual sort of thing for your computer where you could go in and tour Kenyon and see how it stands today. I keep trying to find maps online to sort of see what it looks like, but I'm still kind of hazy on what's going on.
Yeah, well, the library looks great too. I mean, I have to say, I might study.
All I can think of is stink bugs. There were just stink bugs in her apartment. They were so gross. I can't believe those things are still there.
I don't remember those. What about the deli? Is it in some?
The deli's still there.
Still there.
But
Yeah,
is Craig
it's
is
new
Craig
because
Dillon
it's
still
new.
there?
Yeah.
Craig
Craig?
Deli is not there.
No, Craig.
The bookstore is nice now, right? The bookstore's been improved.
It's totally different.
Yeah, I was there last year and I found it really interesting. I had a hard time reconciling, is it worse or is it different? Right? It's hard to have that perspective, And the bookstore was a good example. I went in and maybe it's like the time-space continuum of being an old dude, but I think it was bigger, but it looked smaller and less welcoming to me. And that's what was really weird to me. So I'm like, okay, I'm either like an old dude that needs to get the hell off out of here because this isn't my place, or it actually is just different in a way that doesn't resonate with me. But that was the bookstore. Middle Path was Middle Path.
Yeah.
Unlike these kids today, we go uphill both ways, right? Remember that? It's a Middle Path.
They flattened it out for the new kids.
Yeah, they flattened it, made it easier for these little young punks.
I wonder where that.
Very successful, so I thought that was a good thing.
Wait, what's that?
I'm teasing, Susie.
I know. I just want to say, it was nice.
So are there sororities on campus now? Not that I would am a sorority type of person, but there always was that imbalance when
on
we were
our
there.
call, just FYI. There's some sorority people on our call.
No, I mean that's totally cool, but I mean I just felt like there was like the start of one when we were there, but I don't know if there's just like a larger sorority presence that evens the playing field a bit.
Yeah.
There's a couple, I think. There's more than one now. I think
Amy,
there's like
are you
3.
on here? Amy Andrews, are you on here?
I was part of it too. I mean, I was part of that group just because I was like, just wanted some, wanted women to have some social power because it seemed like it was pretty tipped hard to the to the male identifying side. I was the pledge master and I enjoyed my role.
Yeah, no, I'm here, Susie. I'm just multitasking, so I didn't have my camera on. But yeah, there are like 2 or 3 sororities now. They live in the old SIU wing in, I guess that's Leonard, which is kind of crazy when you go in there. All the lounges upstairs don't get used anymore either. So, and the crazy thing is I have like friends whose daughters have gone to Kenyon and have pledged. And I think Kelly was on the phone. We were some of the original members and they all have to memorize our names because we were the founding members. And so my friend's daughter, who I've literally known since birth, was like, oh my gosh, I had to like memorize you and all your pals. But yeah, I think it's nice. I think the whole like Greek scene has really changed and they have a lot more kind of social outlets than we did a million years ago. But I do think it offered like kind of some nice balance, and especially on the housing, right? Because that was like such a big piece of what the conversations were about at the time, was like it was so limited in terms of if you wanted to live down at that end, like, there were places you just couldn't even get into because you weren't part of a Greek organization and they didn't exist for women. So yeah, it's progress.
Are there still archons too?
I don't know.
Yes. My daughter Sarah was an archon briefly.
Oh, I love that. Nice.
Yeah. So she lived in Hannah for for sophomore year until COVID hit.
I knew the Peeps were still there. So I know some Peeps in Denver, and I know they're still
Oh, nice.
presence. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody whoever's going to be there. It's going to be great.
Just for those of you who haven't been back, and I'm sure somebody, Joan or someone else, could better answer. If Kyla's still on, I'm sure she's the better person to tell the story. But our class is known as the reprobates. So if you haven't been back, if people come up to you and call you a reprobate, it's actually a compliment.
Yeah.
Even though you might not feel like it at first.
Yeah.
You could blame Dave Rath.
Right, blame Dave Rath.
Or
We're not sure.
Odin Ogden or whatever his name was, Odin.
Yeah.
So for our 10-year reunion planning meeting, which was held in the fall of before the reunion, the president of the college will have a reception on that Friday evening for all of the alumni who are coming in to organize it. So I think I was walking in with a bunch of us were walking in, Toft and Dave Rath and I were walking in, and and Odin was not there when we were there. So we said hi, and he said, "Oh, what class are you?" And we said, "Oh, we're 89." And he said, "Oh, yeah, the reprobates." And we kind of looked at each other like, what the hell did we do that we got, So we then lived it up and continued to behave that weekend like the name we were given. And we continued.
If you have to ask.
Yeah. Do we get T-shirts that say reprobates, I hope?
I want one.
Talked about it, actually.
Good fundraiser.
We spray painted the wall at the last one.
I'm sorry, what?
We spray painted the wall on the last one when they were redoing the library.
Yeah, around the library, yeah.
No, but we're seriously thinking about doing the shirts, actually, yes. So we're looking to have a T-shirt that's just for our class that everybody can order if they'd like.
That'd be a great fundraiser.
Yeah.
So it says reprobates, I'll buy.
Yeah, send it to the scholarship fund. I love that.
Be one of those order your own.
So since we have this group together, let's just a quick straw poll. Stick up your hand if this seems like a good idea. Do you remember the senior week T-shirt? Fred Zinn did a logo on the back of it, and it was senior week 89. We were thinking of doing a takeoff of that for the shirt. Does that sound like a decent idea or a little odd or what? Because it literally throws back 35 years to all the stuff that was going on while we were on campus. Good, bad, indifferent.
Yeah, I think reprobate better personally, but that's
I think reprobate might be easier.
Well, that's on the front.
What do you mean it throws back to anything? Like it reveals secrets or what?
No, it was a pyramid of like stuff like ARA was on there, and I can't remember.
Yeah, it was all stuff that was relevant for that year, kind of thing.
That'd be kind of the Bob Marley Exodus.
Exodus.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun.
That would be fun.
As much as we want to just look completely like we were there ages and ages ago, I think we go for it.
Yeah.
Because of the rest of Reprobates, what am I talking about? I think the T-shirt's great. The back of it, if it's like really like 1989 in terms of design and everything,
it is.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
It'll be one.
If someone could let me share my screen, I actually have this.
Yeah, I just found it.
There you go. That's the wall.
Nice. Yeah, that was our spray painting late at night where we were thinking no one would see us despite all the people walking down Middle Path. We had clearly been drinking.
And we were so quiet, We were so quiet.
And I'm going to vote it should be like a band T-shirt. And so the back says the Kenyon Reprobates, and you can either put the dates on it or whatever, right? And then the front just says, if you have to ask.
That's really good. And Dave, I think if we have any kind of, when we have our party, we need you to have some of your mics there so that you can say, and here it comes.
Yeah.
Bravo, you sound awesome.
You can announce it on your radio show early and often.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I
guys,
feel like he's gonna have to be our DJ at, you
Yeah,
know,
if somebody wants me to take a job in retirement, let me know, because I'm already getting evil looks at home, and it's only been a few months.
So everyone, I just dropped it into the text stream. You can look at it there. It'll pull up as a preview.
I was gonna say I have mine too. If it'll show.
Kristen asked if does the picnic pub still exist? It's called
No,
something.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's not.
No,
Oh.
there's, I think it does. I ate there after my nephew's graduation.
But there's, I don't know if it's called the picnic pub. I think
It's different. It is different, but it's, you know, fancier than it was, I think, but.
No Long Island iced teas.
They don't sell a 32-ounce Long Island iced tea anymore.
And the great chicken sandwich.
Oh, yes.
Well, this has been great having everybody. If anyone has anything else they want to chat about, let's chat. Otherwise, I'm going to confess the truth. I mean, those of you on other coasts, but my watch told me like 45 minutes ago that it was time to prepare for bed. So not that I'm aging or anything. I don't want to like tell a tale, but anyway, we can keep chatting. We're very grateful, but
thank you, Susie. It was great.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Susie.
Thank you so much. It's great to hear from everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye. See you soon. Bye.
all right.
All right.
I don't
Good
know.
job, Susie.
This is
Do we have to go?
I don't know. Like if I'm the person who ends it.
Oh, okay. Well, I know you have to go to bed because you're an old lady.
I wasn't trying to, but like I'm sorry.
What time do you get up in the morning, Susie?
5.
Why?
Because I start tutoring sometimes at 7 in the morning.
Oh God. Okay. Jesus, I would not.
Yeah.
I try to exercise, believe it or not, but you know, doesn't leave a lot of hours.
Okay.
I saw your Springer pop up in the back. You've got right there.
Did you see Roy Kent? Isn't
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
My 15 almost 15-year-old gets me up at 5:30 whining every single morning after having been up twice during the night prior to that to pee.
So you know exactly what I'm talking. And I will say, I was not nervous about this until everyone was like, "Are you okay? Good luck. Good luck." I was like sitting here, like shaking, vibrational, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Oh,
Susie, you did a really good job. I really
you did.
appreciate you
Great.
doing that, and it went smoothly and everything.
Sure,
So
you wouldn't tell me I suck. It's just like the whole writer.
no, I would tell you that.
What are you talking about?
You though, how cool is that? Because we definitely got people who have not been back on.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, you know, they're in touch with some people and a little more inspired. But I think that this is something to consider doing with different, you know, maybe different forms of
Absolutely. Nurses, teachers.
Right, like healthcare teachers, just to talk about it. Oh,
that would be educators. Like what we can make it.
No, well, I mean, you could do, but different groups, right? Because we probably have so many educators, and there is a difference between whether or not you're teaching at the university college level versus if you're teaching primary education, right? So I think it could be, and just different topics, you know, like, and get questions beforehand to ask a panel. So I think it's.
Go ahead, Jen. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, no, so I mean, I'm thinking, Susie, and we can talk about this. I think if we could do one more before reunion, we might even, you know, like if we could try something maybe mid to late March, we might then, or early April, inspire some more people to come, and we can, you know, bat around what we think a good panel would be.
I think that's a great idea. I really do.
Do we have like entrepreneurs or people who are executive level in businesses, something like that? You know, it's
Mike Arbor would know. Ed
Yeah.
Beamel would know.
that would get a different crowd, I guess I'm thinking.
Terry Martin.
Yeah.
I will say Terry Martin was the one who recommended Nick. And that's the first time Fred Forden has done anything since our 5th reunion. Like
Well, I
getting,
would hope so. His wife was on the call, for Christ's sake.
I didn't mean it like that, but
No, he tends
I
to do
have to
things
say,
that fits his group.
was I rude when I cut Cameron off? Because I thought she might
No.
go on.
I don't think so.
Okay,
No,
thank,
I barely even noticed it until you said something about cutting people off.
well, thank God. Because I was
Yeah.
like, hey, time is ticking. They only gave us till 15. All right. I don't know. I
Yeah,
thought
and
it was great.
the other group I would think of, and I don't actually know for sure that we have too many of these in our particular class, but you know, people who are in the performing arts sometimes bring in a group too. I'm not sure if we have too many in our specific class.
Well, we've got Larry Grimm is the
Oh,
one that
right,
springs
yeah.
to mind.
Yeah.
I don't know what Chad's doing these days, if he's still actually involved. Who else? There are a couple other people, I think.
Yeah, they
Right.
probably are.
Yeah,
they
but
probably are. I just
it could be theater, right? It could be any of the
Could be music,
Yeah.
anything arts related, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do that, you know, it could be, you know, we could make it something about just, you know, like what Toph did with us, just hearing some thoughts on what's coming up this year with the election, right? And getting both sides just to make sure we know where the 4 of us are, but, you know, but just to make it even and just, you know, hear things from a just let's be factual and
politics at all costs.
We
Because
could
the
avoid it.
reality is, I think it was Chris Eaton who arranged that. And
it was. And that was just us. That was our little reunion.
yeah, and we were able to I just think that that's dicey. And
No,
I
I
thought
agree.
Courtney handled that so beautifully. I'm telling you, that podcast of hers that I hope it was in the chat. I wept. Like her stories were, it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wept while listening. I know that's dorky. I know I'm dorky.
It's not?
But I like the idea of us focusing on everyday people. But Chris Toff said something about Laura, I think, wanting to have her own show in April. Remember at that meeting, he said, and we'll possibly have another one where we highlight another author by herself.
Yeah. Well, and you know, she would definitely get people out.
I don't think she would.
Yeah, you know, the problem is that I know she is class of 89, but you know, she didn't know many people and she didn't graduate, and I hate to be a jerk.
I don't think you're being a jerk.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
mean, regular people who are not, you know, when Laura wants to give a couple million, then I'll feel differently.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd rather hear Larry Grimm tell stories or somebody like that, you know, who's doing interesting stuff. But yeah, anyway, it's all good.
I think everything that people are, I mean, I think, again, interesting. There's lots of different things that are interesting and we can spin it a bunch of different ways, right? You know, depending on which group we choose to tackle. You know, we could be talking about, like, you know, again, if you look at the educators, right? What's the challenge you're seeing with in the area that you're teaching, you know?
I think all of those are really relevant.
Right. You know, what are things that can be done to, you know, change things for the next generations? Because that's what I think we need to be thinking about and starting to talk about, is what wisdom can we leave behind so that our kids and then eventually our grandkids can make everything a little bit better.
You know, the good thing about tying or maybe doing educators is, I mean, because, you know, Sarah, I know you're in the same boat too, although a little higher quality, is that we can explain why Kenyon, like, you know, why does Kenyon need your help? What is the point of reconnecting with Kenyon or giving money? Well, liberal arts colleges are not dying, but a lot of them are in serious stress right now. And there's, there's good reasons for that, but a place like Kenyon, it seems like, oh, they're fine. Well, they're not exactly.
Well, that's isn't he at Stanford or something like that? Like I think
who's
Lincoln Blevins.
Yeah,
he's not. I don't think he's.
He doesn't teach.
Yeah, he's not teaching.
Workforce, like he's not a professor. He works for the. No, it's okay. He does something like engineering, like for Stanford. Like it's not an education job.
Do you know, he might, I mean, I wonder, because our person he's a director of sustainability, I think, isn't he?
Yes, correct.
That sounds right.
Yeah, our person who's a director of sustainability does have, I mean, we're a much smaller institution, obviously, but he does have some contact with students and with the environmental science majors and stuff like that. So I don't know, like he's not teaching classes, I don't believe, but he definitely is involved with students, and students get involved in projects through him and stuff like that. I don't, it might be a different operation at Stanford, but.
And like, I've never seen a school like Dave Rass. I'm just telling you, where he's flying all over the world.
Yeah.
Where they have satellite campuses in Shanghai. Like, I am very curious about all that. And the school is also someone I went to high school with. So like, I am really curious about all, but I think so. I don't know when we have another call, but I think that
well, we can put that onto the text thread and set something up, right?
I think that's a good idea.
And Lindsay, we don't need to drag you into that. We can just make that our own and then
not anymore. I think she gave me the power.
Okay. But yeah, and then when we need their help, we can let them know this is what we want to do. We could just do an evening Zoom and
we wouldn't all have to read, 3,200 pages.
Susie, you're the only one who read all those books.
No one suggested that. You did that, you lunatic.
Well, what was I going to do?
I know.
It was great. It was amazing that you did it.
Are you kidding me?
Would you be pissed off to be invited to a panel and no one read your books?
Wait a minute. Can we just talk about the fact that some psycho group invited Sarah Bamford to their...
Yeah, that was bad.
Like, who... exactly. Who does that? What is wrong with you? Don't like the book then. Meet with your friends. Why are you bringing the person there?
I thought that was such a great share, though. I thought that was such a great share.
No, I thought it was great. I can't believe she stayed for 2 hours. Like, and then finally was like, I got to get out of here. That was crazy. Like, oh my God. I have to say, it was a fascinating group of people. Like, it was very eclectic, and it was really kind of cool. So
yeah.
This was
Verdict. I don't even know who he is. I don't know if I've seen him.
I don't remember him, but he needs to voice over everything for us.
I'm not joking. Like, we need him to introduce people at the party or something. But I have to say, like, I really feel like we got a lot of people engaged that haven't been engaged, which is
so. And the one thing I wanted to say, which I didn't, is that at this point going back, like anything that was maybe traumatizing to you during those years or whatever, like nobody's paying attention to any of that anymore. And it's an opportunity to just kind of reconcile that.
Well, and I almost said we only have so many more reunions left in us. Go while you still have fun.
Oh, great. Yeah. Way to liven up the party there.
Yeah, thank God you did.
I didn't say it. I thought, like, come on. Like, how many?
Wait, wasn't it at the last reunion where we were John, you were there. Remember and Alex made some comment. They were reading all the dead classmates of the.
So it was 84, those wackos at our combined dinner started doing an in memoriam and reading off the names. And Alex I think Alex looked at something. I wish I knew, because it had me like pissing in my pants. And I think he just looked right at me. He was like, wow, this is uplifting. And and I was so furious, and that they were doing this, and I remember turning to the back of the room where Mike Arbor and Ed B. Miller were, and they were looking at me going, what is this? This is awful. Like, why are we rattling off everyone who died? And not to mention, we did not have that many people. Like, they had a bunch more. Oh, it's atrocious. God, I'm curious to see what they do this year.
I don't want to.
I'm a little curious if they set up a little room to play games and have their coffee bar.
It doesn't bother me, but they were jerks about the other things. Like, I feel like you don't have to be Debbie Downer. Like, I feel like we have hung out with people who are at their 50th reunion that were more lively than the people of the class of 84.
Yes. Well, I mean, as some people who I think like to have fun in 84 said, the people on the reunion committee were not your like average student. So
yeah.
Wasn't Tazwell in that class?
Oh yeah, he was horrified. Yeah,
Yeah.
he said to me, he was like, the people who would, huh?
There are a lot of things going on that we can Zoom, and Taz is doing one on February 21st. He's talking about some play, which I'm not remembering right now.
Okay. Nice.
Just go to the Kenyon events. They have
Yeah,
a lot.
that's true. I keep harassing my friend's daughter. I'm like, Catherine, because I think she's a drama minor. I'm like, have you taken a class with Tazwell yet? And she's like, no. I'm like, you need to go say hi to him, and you need to explain how you know me. He'll probably tell you he's sorry for you. Like, but go tell him hello. Go meet him. He's awesome.
Well, Dave, I'm sorry you can't be there for graduation.
Yeah, no.
Graduation, that's kind of important.
Yeah, that's this is our big graduation, so we'll I'll miss you guys.
Princeton?
I'm sorry?
Did he decide on Princeton?
Yeah, pretty much. He's waiting to hear back from UVA. Because he's going to do only Susie will understand this, the Jefferson Scholar thing.
I know this.
Yeah, so he's waiting to hear about that, but he got a full ride, so I don't know what they're going to offer that would be different. So
and it's Princeton. So the daughter that
I'm not sure UVA can top that right now.
No, the friend that the daughter, her father actually is a Princeton grad. So,
okay. Yeah.
And there's a lot about Princeton that kind of reminds me of Kenyon.
We went up there in the summertime, in the summer, and I was with William, so because they did the tour. So William and I walked around. We went into every building, and later on, they're like, you're not supposed to go into any buildings if you're on the tour or something. We were just wandering in. Oh my God, the place! It reminded me so much of Kenyon on steroids. I mean,
right.
If we have Ascension, they have like 12 Ascensions,
Yeah, but even their reunion, like, so my friend, like he graduated in 86, but he, was on their reunion committee.
Parade, every reunion.
Yeah, they do. They like kind of have, it's like the same, it's the same thing. And, listen, an Ivy League education, it opens doors. It doesn't, it doesn't matter. So.
Yeah. No, he'll go there. He fell in love with the place, and he's worked so hard, and
But it'll be a notch in his cap if he can say he was a Jefferson Scholar in the state of Virginia and turned it down.
Yeah, and VES, where he goes to high school, wants to be able to say, if he gets it, oh yeah, we had one, even if he doesn't take it. But we'll see.
Let's go to the bathroom. So unless I make one of you co-host, I've got to end.
No, I'll let you go. I was just going to say, I think I'm glad that Aiden went the baseball route, because he would have been graduating this spring, and it could have very much interfered with reunion, and that would have been a big problem.
All right.
Yeah.
Great to see
you. All right, you guys.
Good night.
Talk to you later.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.